curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of lies spinning from their mouths. Start looking, listen for a little while. And you don't see them behind their smile. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow bathing in your blood. It's never enough. Program reality, double thing duality. Put upon the face of all mankind. Our numbers up and the dead woman sound. Go along to get along. Hypnotized by the siren song. The nights are empty and the crypts are cracking open. The horde's upon you and you stand there frozen, waiting for the word. Stand in line and wait your turn. Don't follow the strings to find out who is pulling. Just drink your poison, keep on laughing and drooling, eating your own flesh. The master always knows what's best. Worldwide genocide. The overlords of hungry parasites. They point the finger and the eagles fly. Raining fire, children die. Starving plague, paralyzed. Pile of bodies rotting, covered in fire. But no one wants to talk about it. It's safer not to talk about it. I cut my strings, no more bowing to the master. I tried to run, but they only came faster. Now I stand my ground. I ain't backing down. Silver bullets in my pistol, in my holster. My will is strengthened and my confidence is bolstered. Don't test my resolve. Don't test my resolve.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, July the 3rd, 2022. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by Tim and Dustin, respectively, as we go that way. And we'd like to thank you for joining us on episode 42. So don't panic and everybody bring your towel. Actually, this night we're calling this Narcin Nancy helps the Overmountain Man. She saved the Overmountain Man. Actually, we're going to talk about a local hero who a lot of people probably have not heard about. And we've talked about the Overmountain Men before in episode 2, I think it was, and we mentioned them also last week in the episode where we talked about the 250th anniversary of the Watauga Association. But tonight, I wanted to get into a little bit of stuff I learned by reading this book, The Overmountain Men. It is by Pat Alderman, and it's a local history book from this area. Probably stuff if you grew up around here, a lot of you probably heard a lot of these stories, but maybe you didn't hear about Nancy Ward. She's a little bit of a lesser known figure in the local history. Y'all heard about the Iron Mountain Men though, right? Mm-hmm. Did you ever walk the Iron Mountain Trail or the Overmountain Men? Yeah. So also, interestingly enough, I came across a report. Apparently there is something called the Iron Mountain Report. Okay. That has been in conspiracy circles since the early 1970s when it was written. And it regards a series of deposits that were investigated in Iron Mountain, California by NASA. Now, if you look on NASA and their astrobiology department, they were looking at it with something to do with Mars and possible, otherworldly life that they may find on Mars. So I'm going to look into a little bit more into that and see what I can find about it for the show, because I think that'd be an interesting topic to discuss.
There's a correlation with iron.
Yeah, it is. Of course, it is represented, or it is related to the iron, the ferrous and sulfurous rocks that they found in the area that they imagined that they would find on Mars. So it did have to do with that. But I'm not. Hey, hello there, Sean. I've not researched it enough to know, but I just thought it was pretty interesting. And then my conspiratorial brain was like, oh, what if they were really pumping people to the Iron Mountain Hour because they want to build up this channel because they think we're a bunch of idiots and they don't want people to look at the Iron Mountain Report.
And I'll perform for them. Oop, 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 oop. You know, start wearing a tutu. Or...
Well,
that wouldn't be that controversial nowadays.
Well, you know how your mind starts to. Well, no, that would be. They would invite you down to the local library to
literally
read to children.
Nah, nothing in this day and age. No, because I was about to say I'd have to wear a full suit of armor, but there's that armored skeptic guy.
I've not seen that.
Okay, if you go on YouTube and you type in armored skeptic, there's a dude who argues libertarian viewpoints and dresses in a full suit of armor.
Yeah.
At one point, yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's all kinds of personas, so there's like nothing really out there you can do anymore to get attention other than just be normal. Black Alien Project, have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Go to Instagram sometime, just look up Black Alien Project. Essentially, it's a guy trying to like turn himself into like a xenomorph looking thing. He's already tattooed every inch of his skin to look like black lizard sort of texture.
But that gets you attention for about 5 minutes now, and then everybody's like, where's the next...
Well, I mean, I'm sure he's been able to use that to get like a lot of
well, I'm sure it's open
appearances.
doors for him, yeah.
I'm sure he's got a lot of money.
Yeah, he can make a career out of it. Yeah.
But man, like, you really got to walk around looking like a xenomorph the rest of your life. I mean, he really does look. He really does look terrible. Like I'm pretty sure he's missing a finger at this point. And
Well,
like he's got a piece of his cheek cut back so you can see. He looks like a Cenobite. That's what he looks like.
Didn't you say there was a group of people who were like aroused sexually by being impregnated by the xenomorph specifically? Weren't you the one that told me that?
Are you opening the conversation?
You brought it up, but I gotta ask you: is this where we're heading with this kind of thing?
No.
Would this guy do well in these circles?
There's probably a handful of people out there that are probably rubbing their naughty bits to the Black Alien Project. I mean, there are. If you go to, I think I saw it on an All Gas No Brakes clip before he left them. I think it's channel 5 now, is what his new channel is called. But there was a section where he went to like a sex con, it was like an adult con, you know, and there was a section where it was like giant, like, it didn't look like any kind of a penis that you would, I don't know, it didn't even look like a horse one. It was just this giant weird thing with an elbow in the middle of that you could like lay eggs with, you know? So it was like, I don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of weird crap out there. End of story on that one.
This episode is, of course, brought to you by Tammy's Adult Toys, formerly Tammy's Dildos. Until then, legal action forced them to change their name. We got camera issues here. Maybe
yeah, we got some Battle of the Tammy.
Little buffering there, yeah. That we had to, so she had to change it to Tammy's Artisanal Toys.
And they are artisanal, to be fair.
And you're referring specifically to the Scotty.
Only comes in UT Orange. She is debating by next July 4th, not this one, because obviously production.
Tomorrow. Or unless there's a big announcement.
No, we can't do it. She couldn't make it happen in time. So by next July 4th, we hope to have what is known as the Patriot.
Yeah.
Red, white, and blue.
Well, I was going to give you a little surprise. There's the Georgie Boy that is coming out today. It is representative from a mold of George Washington's penis, and it has been made in a red, white, and blue color, like a firecracker pop. So thank you, Tammy, she'll have that out tomorrow.
Is it the wooden edition?
No. This one's all acrylic, and Tammy will have that out tomorrow. So thank you for the sponsorship, Tammy. We really appreciate it. And we'd like to have you for a view. We're so happy that you're a viewer, too. So she's not only a sponsor, she's also a viewer. And shout out to Tammy and her artwork.
Cliff, not only an endorsement, he's also a user.
What was the old thing? I'm not also the hair club for men. I'm not also only the president, I'm also a member. But yeah, well, so before we get into the stories of tonight, Tim has a couple things he wants to show us, and I had a couple little videos here. Apparently, you know, we've been talking a lot about the World Economic Forum and their vision for the Great Reset, and a lot of that plan has to do with us transitioning off of fossil fuels, but their plan for us to transition off of fossil fuels is not backed up with enough energy resources to actually, for us to continue to live the lifestyle that we've lived. So they're plan is for us to live a less fulfilling lifestyle by having less fossil fuels. And the Dutch, who were, pretty agreeable to this until they realized what it would mean when they cut 30% of the nitrogen, they are not having it. And so they are getting together and they are pouring fertilizer and manure on the government buildings. Whoops. So we're going to look at this real quick. What's going on in, not Deutschland, but Holland, the Netherlands.
Is this kind of like their version of the honking?
Oh, wait a minute. Let's get
The poopening?
Should we give him the music here? No, I'm afraid he'll pack a kill us for the music.
Yeah,
so.
especially with that.
So we won't turn on the desktop audio.
AC/DC.
Make sure I don't have the desktop audio on here.
I mean, it's on a TikTok, but I don't think it has anything. Well,
Yeah.
they don't come after your video for...
Well, I don't know, but
AC/DC owns one of your videos.
yeah, I don't know. They probably would be all it would be, but I wouldn't want them to kick the stream.
Did you know that Bon Scott, no,
guess.
which one is still alive?
No, Brian Johnson is.
Brian Johnson owns 33% of the Iron Mountain area.
Yeah. So here we'll just look at it a little bit, and maybe you won't hear it on my speakers, but there it is. Yeah, this is what's going on in the Netherlands. And you got the gay flags flying. You got all the different groups coming together here to protest the takeover of their farming system and the forced shutdown of their economy for the benefits supposedly of the environment, to cause people to not be able to produce enough food to feed themselves.
Are they really clogging in the streets?
They are.
That protest?
Yeah, they are.
So what economic forum? Like
The World Economic Forum that we
told
talked about.
Holland, you need to
No,
use
it was-
less nitrogen, and they went, okay.
No. It's a framework that was agreed to by member states who went to meet at the World Economic Forum. They're signing
That's what I'm saying, I
to
was just
through
rejecting
Agenda
it, is what I'm
2030. Through Agenda 2030.
So,
if you're
yeah.
familiar with Agenda 2020 or 2012 and what was it? Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. The culmination of those are international agreements to basically create super states for the regulation of the environment. And one key tacit of that is to limit greenhouse gases, and they are trying to do that by limiting the amount of fertilizer that can be used, and they're trying to cut down on the amount of livestock which produce methane, and the farming industry which produces carbon dioxide. But 97% of the greenhouse gas on the planet is water vapor. So this is even the proponents of the global warming laws will tell you this, that man actually contributes about 3%, or carbon dioxide is about 3% of the greenhouse gases, and man produces about 0.5% of that. So while we do affect it in a way, the best guess that they have is that we could potentially cause the temperature to rise 1 degree Celsius in about 100 years. And then you see these things like 97% of climate scientists agree it's time to shut down the auto industry or whatever it is. And really that's, these guys do all agree that man is contributing a small amount to it, but then, they get the money and the politics behind it, and they start saying things to get more money flowing to them, more grant money and stuff. So a lot of the emphasis is taken off of actual things to save the environment. Like for instance, China is burning these old nasty coal deposits that are full of mercury, and they're putting up new coal plants every day. Meanwhile, they're allowed to do this because they're supposedly a developing nation, but the United States is not able to burn what they call as clean coal, because the only thing it produced when they burn it is carbon dioxide and water vapor.
It's a little bit of a backwards argument, not arguing for it. I am for the green people's arguments. They just execute them in the wrong way, and they give the worst people control of the movement is my issue with it. My problem is, like, saying China is burning these mercury balls of nastiness, and then saying we can't do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're shutting down coal and natural gas plants, which don't produce that kind of pollution, right? Mm-hmm. But the same intranational body that is, we're a leader in that. So the United States administration right now is one of the first things they started doing was, shutting down refineries not shutting them down, making it difficult for them to operate, shutting down some of the natural gas pipelines, not allowing permits for new refineries to open, to not renewing leases on lands where there actually is oil, and then saying, well, there's plenty of leases active. Why aren't these people drilling? Because it's not in places where they can have a successful drilling. So all along, the administration has told us, and while Biden was campaigning, he was told us that he was going to transition off of fossil fuels, and he's doing it, and it's part of a larger plan that we've talked about, and we've seen it talked about. He's not doing it, but his administration is doing it. So, but Joe Biden is signing the papers to make it all happen. So, regardless of who is telling him what to do, if anybody's telling him what to do, he's the one signing the papers, and he did tell us that was what he was going to do when he started signing those papers. So anyway, back to the climate agenda. I agree. It's a terrible thing to have burning mercury into the skies and spreading everywhere, but they're not stopping that. Okay, they're not stopping actual pollution. All they're trying to do is shut down energy in areas where we've made it where it's mostly clean to do it, where there's very little pollution from it, and it's all part of bringing the United States to its knees to be part of this global 2030 agenda. And anyway, it's not just the United States; it's the Western countries too. But the Western countries are feeling the worst of it because of the whole situation in Ukraine right now too. The countries in Western Europe, because of their proximity to it and the amount of energy and food that they get from there. So let's look at this other one here. This is in Spain. It's spread in here, doing similar stuff in Spain, blocking highways because of the farming restrictions that are making it difficult on their people. So worldwide, especially in Europe, this stuff is being implemented, and the people are at least recognizing, hey, this stuff is killing us, and they're trying to speak out about it and do something about it. So I think that's a positive sign. Meanwhile, in the United States, got a few protests over the Supreme Court decisions, but not as many as I was expecting. I mean,
you mean the Roe v. Wade one, yeah.
Yeah, that and other ones. I mean, there were some pretty incredible ones that came out, like the Supreme Court ruled that the EPA can't make law. Like, that's pretty significant in a lot of different ways, because the EPA was they were created by Congress, and then they were writing their own regulations and deciding how much was, so such and such gas were illegal to burn, how much was...
Another example of parties using things to get other things passed, because that was a Nixon idea.
Well, yeah.
EPA. Well, not an idea, but he signed it into law.
And they used it to stop from Congress from having to pass laws. They would use the EPA as a regulatory body. Mm-hmm. And that's something that a lot of conservatives used to be against, but then not so much over the last few decades. We've really had... It's been more of, well, let's take over the government so we can use that to our advantage, rather than this thing shouldn't exist, or these things exist on the state level, so there really is no need to have them on the federal level. But that was one of the main reasons of starting the United States, is to have the local authority be supreme in most matters, we'll say. So I think we're
doing a very horrible job at that.
Yeah, I think some of those Supreme Court's decisions, like the repealing of Roe versus Wade, like I said in the past, I'm not getting into the abortion argument. I don't like abortion, but I ultimately don't think that laws will stop it if they decrease it. Hopefully that's a good thing. But either way, they're returning the power to the states, which was the whole purpose of the states anyway. So I find that to be okay. But then, did you think it was odd, Dustin, that they also in the same breath, like literally the day before they released that ruling, or that opinion overturning the other opinion of Roe versus Wade, that they found just the day before that different states could not violate the right to bear arms? Was it because that is specifically listed in the Constitution, or why was it that they felt like that? Okay, if people in New York decide that they don't want guns in their state, why can't the people of New York ban the guns in their state? Did you know the difference between those two rulings?
Mm-mm.
I don't either.
I do not, actually.
So it seems kind of inconsistent. Other than we talked on the program before that originally it was considered that the First and Second Amendments were set by they weren't binding to the states, right? But then at some point they did become binding, and the states were not allowed to violate the First and Second, but they could violate the other amendments. And I wonder if it was related to that. So if anybody knows, tell us in the chat. I'd be interested to know. I'd probably have to listen to Chris Ann Hall, who is a Liberty First University constitutional attorney and scholar. She would probably have a good video on that, so I'll have to see if I can figure that out before next episode. But anyway, I didn't see the outrage that I really thought that we would see in a lot of places in the United States. But Tim, you want to hit us with your stuff? You got some videos for me or something?
I'll have to send them to you.
Okay. Well, why don't I go ahead and talk about this while you get that ready?
I'll have to think of which direction you want to go, so it doesn't wouldn't want to get it too far off track or anything. No, let's do let's give you a choice.
What happened to my... Well, go ahead and find it, because I just accidentally closed out my whole show program here. So, yeah, just a minute.
Oh, did you just end it on accident? Or does it keep going?
What's that?
The OBS.
Oh, no, the OBS is running, but I closed out my windows that had all the stuff that I was going to use in the show.
Okay.
Okay, well, I want to start you off with... what do you want me to send it to?
You can send it to the ironmountainhour@gmail.com.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to send you one that's a reaction. Just I want to see.
Okay.
And then I want to do the other one. Well, I better do the other one first, just so I don't...
Oh, God.
So stupid.
I can't wait.
While we wait on that, I got a little shameless plug to throw in.
All right, hit us.
Oh, no, Goff, you're not using the Patriot, are you?
Oh,
Or whatever you said that was called.
Georgie boy.
Got the Georgie boy in his stinker.
Fits nice and snug. But this coming Friday, for everyone that's local, my synthwave project Aetherweaver with Jonathan, he's also been on the show, whichever episode that was now.
I don't
Number
remember.
148.
Okay, yes. We're playing our first live show this Friday evening.
All right, we're
Be
at
at Capone's over in Johnson City.
Capizzle?
cool 10 o'clock.
Yep, 10 p.m. I think it's one of those, like, if you're over 21, it's $5. If you're under, it's like $7, something around that line.
You know who else is playing?
Gloom Mountain Gospel, and I know the other one, but
That's why I was just trying to open up to promote. Gloom is a Vapors group, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
I thought so. Clifford.
You're sending them my way.
Yeah, as soon as I don't do dumb things like just leave it in draft for some reason. Here we go. Oh, baby. Hopefully both of these are correct, because otherwise I might have just sent you something unnecessary.
That's all right.
Don't screen share until you know what they are.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Just got a bunch of shit coming through here.
Did you see, I know we don't normally talk sports or anything. Did you see, of course it was kind of delayed karma. There's a MMA fighter, I think it's Steven Silverman. I don't remember.
Here we go.
Not important. Point was, he kind of like burned every weeb in the world with one comment, and it was just funny. Because he's fighting this other guy, but for some reason the champion fight that's about to happen down there, which is Israel Adesanya. Alright, hold on. Pause that. Israel Adesanya is the current champion, like dominant. He's been reigning for a while. He'll be an era when he finally gets beaten. And he's openly into hentai. So the guy behind him was like, I tell you one thing, you might knock me out when we fight, but I sure as hell ain't getting knocked by a guy who jerks at the cartoons. It's so funny. Anyway, here's a very important video, Cliff.
Okay.
Let's do the one with the thief first, not the subway. The squirrel. Now, Goff.
Oh boy.
There you go, guy.
Okay.
Whoops.
No music is necessary, but you can let the music fly if you want to.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and grab the desktop audio and turn that back on then before we do. Desktop audio.
It's Dr. Nuff's almost got as much head as the VR.
You'll drink a Dr. Enough with your Guinness.
Yes.
What's the matter with you, boy?
Well, I tell you what, I'm not really into beer. I try my best,
Yeah.
but the liquor goes down quicker.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to sugar water. Here we go, boys.
Little squirrels just crumbled. Jeez. Directed by Piano Pete. Thank you for that, Piano Pete. Mercy.
Anyway. Anyway.
Next one.
The next one is my weekly introduction, or my weekly induction to city folk don't get to vote.
I'm crying.
And I don't know if this is a troll, but I'm just saying, you shouldn't have to put up with this every day on the way to work. That's all.
All right, let's see it.
If this is your morning commute to work, can you imagine how crazy you would be?
Yeah.
Pause, I'm sorry. This one is disguised as because I guess we got to be humorous. This one's disguised as one of those videos you see on YouTube where it's Oblivion NPC dialogue added, where they put the. You ever seen them? Okay. Anyway, so here's your Subway dose of reality for you no longer voters.
Well, I wish I had.
Why you ain't no class today? Oh, fuck you ain't no class, Wolfman!
Just to the middle, for a second.
You have some, Wilson, have some! Wilson, have some!
This is 49th Street.
I've been drinking all day, Wilson, have some! I'm not fucking playing with you, Wilson! Have some! I'll fucking say have some! I'll fucking say have some, Wilson! Fucking Wilson! I'm fucking! Wilson, make me drink all day, Wilson!
I thought it was like whipped and
Fucking Wilson!
or whipped. No, dude, I saw a Subway video the other day. I didn't know you were going to do this. I would have pulled it up for the show, but it was a
It just goes back to
little person in a Chucky mask was attacking this lady and trying to take her bag. And yeah, finally.
Oh, there's all kinds of New York as hell videos.
Yeah.
LA, the city of homeless is a really popular one you can find right now. I think David Wire did that one. It's just, but I try not to bring in just depressing stuff.
So do you think that guy gets to vote?
Well, my point is that guy, not only should he not be allowed to vote, I don't think anybody on that subway car should vote.
Yeah, no.
Because they allowed that city to get that way.
Yeah.
And you live in an environment where you can't think straight because you're in a constant state of duress.
Yeah, keep it in your city, folks.
You get to vote for mayor and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Just, of your own city, only your city. You don't get to vote for president. I'm sorry.
All right, I'm for that.
And stop peeing in the subway. It's weird.
Well, hey, let's talk about Narc and Nancy and the
Narc and
Overmountain
Nancy,
Man.
did she
Yeah.
snitch on people?
Nancy Ward, here she is. She's one of the lesser known heroes of the American Revolution, and she played a pivotal part more than she was a well known hero or anything. But Nancy was she was born to a Cherokee tribe, and her husband went down to fight with the Creek Indians in Georgia, and he was actually killed in battle. And Nancy took up his gun and basically took up the position of her husband in battle and gained a lot of respect. And it was said that she could outshoot anybody.
With a slingshot? Could be the girl. I'm playing people.
No, she took up her husband's bow and
Y'all
gun.
saw me shooting those guns. I'm not going to sit here and be braggadocious about nothing.
Well, Nancy Ward, she became famous because during the time of the Overmountain Men, there was a fella by the name of Dragon Canoe. He was he was actually Nancy's cousin, and he was a Cherokee. The Cherokee had multiple chiefs, and he was basically upset that he felt like the older chiefs they couldn't fight good, and they weren't smart anymore, and they didn't want to work hard. So that was why that they leased the lands to the Americans who came over here to live. Now, we talked about before, what happened was
It's always laziness and complacency.
the people who settled over in this area to begin with, they thought they were settling in Virginia, and they actually ended up in the wrong place, and that was when they started the Watauga Association back in 1772, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of that. That happened in Carter County, Tennessee, where we are right now. Well, these guys, John Carter and John Sevier and people who would go on to be heroes of the Revolution and be heroes of Tennessee, they actually formed this Watauga Association because there was no government in whatsoever over on this side of the hill. And it wasn't that they were really trying necessarily to be free of the crown. It was just they needed a way to deal with horse thieves and, you know, who owned what properties and marriage licenses and contracts and things like this that they needed to deal with. So they formed this centered in Elizabethton, and they met on the bank right there of the Doe River where the covered bridge is under a sycamore tree or a oak tree. Now the oak tree has been since died, but they actually have the stump down there by the covered bridge. You can go see from the original tree, and there's actually a picture in my book of it, but I didn't have that planned out to show you. But Dragon Canoe,
That's a crazy name.
well, first you have to understand that these guys were living over here, right? And then the British Crown said, hey, we have a line that you all were not supposed to cross. And they said, yeah, but we're already here. So they made a deal with the Cherokee Indians that they were going to lease the land from them so that they would not be run afoul of the Cherokee Indians or of the Crown. But they ended up running afoul of both. And the Crown was actually sending a couple of operatives up and down to the Indian nations from the Midwest all the way down to Louisiana and that area, trying to turn them against the Americans or the Patriots. So while this is happening, Dragon Canoe is going around to the other areas of the Cherokee Nation, and he's trying to convince them to go to war with the Americans. And Nancy Ward, she's come back. She's a hero. She's gotten herself onto the tribal council there for the Cherokee, and she finds out about this plan that they're going to hatch to put the Americans in a pincer attack and surprise attack them and wipe them out. And she has lots. Now, Nancy, she actually married a white man by the name of Brian Ward. And Brian, she came across Brian because she, like I said, she was a member of this tribal council. And Brian Ward was an English teacher who had been traveling through the Indian nations, selling his services of teaching English. And the Cherokee thought he was a spy. So they captured him, and they were going to try him by running him through a gauntlet where they would have guys standing on either side of him in a line, and they would be swinging clubs and poking at him with spears. And if he could make it to the other side, then he would be judged not guilty. Well, Nancy, she comes down there and she says, hey, you know, what's going on with this? They tell her. And she says, well, let's do this. Let's have a race to Chota, which was the capital of the Cherokee Nation. And the white man here, Mr. Ward, he's going to get a half-mile head start. Meanwhile, we'll pick 3 braves. And the winner of this, if somebody brings me back this man's skull, then we'll consider scalp, then we'll consider him guilty, and you will be raised to the new chief of this group of Indians. So the 3 braves, they had quite an incentive to capture the man too, and he had his life on the line. So anyway, he races to Chota, and he does end up winning, and then he marries Nancy, and they have some children. But later, he decides to go back and live with his white family. But in the meantime, Nancy, she's met lots of people, lots of settlers from the Overmountain men, and she hears wind of this plan where they're going to go to war with them in a surprise attack. And she actually has a prisoner of the Cherokee Nation, Isaac Thomas. She frees him and gives him the information, and they think she probably had help from others within the tribe too, because he had horses ready and he was able to go. It was a good long ride, and he needed multiple horses to make it, and he had what he needed. So he gets out and he makes it back, and he tells, I forget who it was he ends up telling, but Isaac Thomas brings the company to Easton Station near Long Island, where Captain James Thompson is in command, and they basically decide, we're not going to wait around on the Cherokee to before that happens, they all go to the fort. They get the message around and say, everybody in this settlement go pile up in the fort. So they do. A lot of them go to Fort Watauga because there's a fort down in Telford or Limestone that's not complete yet. So a lot of them run back to this fort. And anyway, that's when we get the famous story of the battle, the siege of Fort Watauga. But before that, we have the Battle of Island Flats, which was in the Kingsport area. And what happened was we had wind because of Nancy sending the message out that the Indians were attacking. So they said, let's fight the Indians first and then prepare to fight the British. So they end up doing that. And they meet the British or meet the Indians in the field of battle, and it's mostly close quarters combat, hand to hand. And the Overmountain settlers actually win the battle, and that kind of gives them some confidence to feel like that they can win this thing. So they go back to Fort Watauga, and then Fort Watauga is sieged by the Cherokee also. It's where we get the famous Bonnie Kate. Catherine Sherrill is actually her name. They've said she could fight and outshoot any man in town. Well, she got caught outside the wall when the Cherokee attacked. She was out there milking the cows and ran back. And John Sevier is actually the one who helped her over the wall in the famous story. And then, they besieged the fort for about 2 weeks, but then they got wind of the loss at Island Flats, and the Indians backed off. And then that was when we get to the famous story of the Overmountain men, who we'll get into in a little bit. But have you guys ever heard of that story?
Yeah, not that particular one where they're pulling over the wall or anything. No.
Okay, so that you got the Bonnie Kate Theater, the famous Bonnie Kate Theater in Elizabeth.
That was where
who it's named after, yeah.
Did not know that either.
But I missed a comment from Sean here. Sean says, New York City is hell. I was born there, and I hope never to go back for any reason. So
it's like a theme park with no rides, where all the workers can be mean to you. It's like if Dick's Last Resort was a theme park, and there's no rides. It's exactly what it's like. Just concrete
there's
everywhere.
Puke everywhere. Like
it costs money to even take a poop, and then there's no toilet paper in the bathroom when you get in there. It's just nuts. Anyway, I could go off on cities forever, but I mean, it's just you've heard this one before.
So yeah, I wasn't really trying to give it necessarily a history lesson, but there's a lot of context to really understand who Nancy Ward was and why she was important. Because it ended up, because if that hadn't happened, the Cherokee and the British would have wiped out the Loyalists in the area that we live in, the western Appalachian regions, the west side of the Appalachians. They would have been wiped out. And it ended up that the Overmountain men from this area were the ones who beat General Patrick Ferguson, or Major Patrick Ferguson, which caused General Cornwallis to have to stop, not invade Charlotte when he wanted to, which caused him to be late to Yorktown, which was when he was defeated and surrendered at Yorktown, which was a huge tide turning in the Revolutionary War. And a lot of people say that without the Overmountain men victory at Kings Mountain in South Carolina, that there would have been no way that we won the Revolutionary War. And without Nancy Ward sending out that warning, old Narcin Nancy, there would be no Patriot group. No, I shouldn't say Patriot Front. That's that Fed group up there that pretends to be right wingers every holiday. But there would be no Patriot resistance from west of the Appalachian Mountains to really turn the tide of the war. So Nancy played a huge part in that. Sean says, but the outer boroughs of NYC are more single-family homes and can be nice, but still a hard no. Yeah. You see them represented. I've never actually been to those areas, but you see them represented in television. They're just kind of like a lot of townhouses, it looks like, and doesn't look too bad. Like, kind of looks like Georgetown type.
No, I'm not trashing the state. I mean, I know New York is really big, but I'm saying like the majority of New York, from everything I've seen, has just been the New York that you would think of as New York. And it's not New York exclusive. New York is in my top whatever list of awful cities, but it's not necessarily number one. There's someone out there has a chance to dethrone them. I just haven't been there yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's cities that could vie for the trophy, but ultimately, what I wanted to get around to tonight was talking about. I've mentioned in several episodes that I'm something of an anarchist myself, but I don't know that I've necessarily articulated that that is the utopian view. We have talked about that's it's kind of that thing that you hope to strive to, but will you ever get there? It's kind of like socialism has the utopian view of the government becoming unnecessary once it has, socialism has fulfilled its purpose. But the vehicle to that end, though, was supposed to be, and a lot of the founding fathers felt that way, was that eventually, if we use this government the right way, there will be no need for a state eventually. And I
What
think
if it leads to a one world government made of that idea, though?
maybe it could. I mean, it could be like a Deus Ex
That's the end
scenario
game.
where it's a corporate state.
Now, you see, my theory, which was very early on into what we were talking about, was that it's kind of like the Ricochet thing. Like, they want us to think that that a one world government is so evil that we'll battle it so hard that we created ourselves. I don't even know what camera's over there. There's a bug at.
I don't know, but I know that a lot of popular culture has been pushing the one world government in things like Star Trek. It's shown as the inevitable future. Like, obviously, we would go to a one world government because that's what enlightened beings would do. But in the framework of what the United States was actually designed for, it was the overthrowing of monarchies, and it's supposed to be the overthrowing of oligarchies. But we see how that turned out.
It's because at one point in time they were almost the same thing, but now, I mean, you can't overthrow an oligarchy without getting rid of currency. You know what I'm saying? Then at that point, the oligarchy just becomes whoever has the toughest guys with the most weapons. Like,
A lot of people make the argument that the state is really just the most successful gang.
yeah, like we use the word cartel to describe some kind of evil, nefarious group, but cartel is just the Mexican word for mafia, and we've got mafia here in the United States too. We've just got so many different groups of families that we don't have a cartel. We've got cartel, mafia, yakuza. We got everything over here because we've got all the races.
And there can also be, corporate cartels like OPEC, where they get together and they decide how much oil they're going to produce and what the prices are going to be. Sean says with Stacey Abrams as the leader of a united Earth. Yeah. That's what they like. And man, I was in Georgia a few years ago during the governor's race where Stacey Abrams was running, and I saw enough of that woman's face on television for the rest of my life. I can't imagine how they put up with it. It seemed like it was really like our governor's race here had nothing on that as far as being in your face all the time. I mean, it was nothing compared to Georgia. And Kemp ended up winning. Stacey Abrams, they keep pushing her, rolling her bloated carcass back out, and trying to push her on us. And
It really makes you wonder, like, what point? Even just like the old school Republicans from like early '90s, like, at what point do you stop pushing these saints? Like, are they such a shield that you're just that desperate to get them in office, and they're that bad? They're that bad that you'll just keep pushing them up there. Please elect this person. I mean, I guess we proved it with this new edition of presidency, who has been, quote, whoring himself out since he was in his early 30s, but you all told me to come back when I was older.
And he did. Boy, did he.
Put that part that you're not supposed to say out loud right out there, buddy. Over and over again.
I was supposed to
All the way to the
tell
top.
you I was a whore.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
So you really can stumble your way to victory. He did it all the way to the highest seat.
Well, he did. He was really seen. He was vice president because I think Obama was seen, or the Democrats were worried that Obama would be seen as too radical. He being the first major black political candidate, and then not only that, he was younger, and a lot of people were unsure about him, even if they liked what he was saying. So they said, "Well, let's put an old white
put the
corporate
oldest
piece of shit in
Yeah,
here
let's
with
put
him."
the worst, most male Hillary we can find.
Yeah. Except I think Hillary's even. I mean, I think he's even worse than Hillary because
He's a complete puppet.
Hillary is. She's pretty much stood for the same shit since the 1970s.
It's because she has a stand. Well, she's a waffler too. She has changed.
Well,
the
she
things.
knows what she does. She'll say what she needs to win, but at the same time, she has worked for her whole life for pretty much what we're coming into right now with the United States.
It's 'cause she has an
now
agenda.
She doesn't get to be the leader of it.
and
How do you think she feels after everybody was like it's her turn, and then she couldn't beat Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden becomes president?
That is pretty.
That's got to be salt in her fucking
You think it was
wound,
planned
man.
though?
I don't know. I feel like it
You gotta
wasn't.
take it there,
I
you
feel
know?
like it wasn't.
Well, you
I don't feel like Trump was planned. I feel like Hillary was supposed to win that shit.
don't think Trump was in on it? No, because I have to
I
go
don't
that
know.
direction. I'll be the person on the show who just goes ahead and takes it full Eddie Bravo or whatever direction you'll go with it, and just say that, like, if they can script all these different things, why can't they script this crazy orange guy coming in and stealing the matriarchy away from Hillary and all this stuff? Like, I don't see why he can't be the Trump card.
I don't think it's out of the question that they could script that. But I feel like that just for all the monkey wrenches that Trump threw into the gears of the whole thing, as far as just the administrative parts of it, I don't think that worked in their favor, unless we're talking Great Ricochet theory.
That's what I'm saying,
And
yeah.
they wanted such a backlash against the Democrats.
I think they want everybody to push. Yeah, I want. If you got to move things, so like effectively what they did was push everybody to the right by making it popular when you're on the left to be mean to your own side. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when I was in like youth group at church, we had a church that was pretty accepting of accountability, you know, like where if somebody was doing something they weren't supposed to, you could tell on them or be mean. You know what I mean? Like a lot of churches were like that. And the difference was, like, once you got out of the youth part, like most churches, the members aren't doing that to each other, so you graduate into adulthood effectively. But like when you're in college and you guys are still snitching on each other, like, oh, did you know that so-and-so watches this particular show on Adult Swim and now your whole friends group shuns you? Like, it's gotten to the point where, like, they're pushing people away because, like, if your friends are that big of assholes, you want to hang out with any of them, you know?
Yeah.
You're effectively at that point, you're like a bird of no feather because, like, where do you go? So,
Well, I still. Yeah, it says Sean says I would have loved to be in the room when they told her she lost Hillary, and he says give Dustin a coffee. Yeah, Dustin's having a what do you call that thing there? A porter, a blueberry porter. What is that? you're having?
I gave you a downer.
Yeah, he said he was tired already.
I didn't get to nap today. I've been up all day.
Dustin
Since
works
like
at
3 in the
5.
morning.
His spirit animal is truly a cat.
Yeah.
And them cats need them naps.
Cat naps.
I didn't get in.
Get him some catnip in his coffee. And
I have a
he'll be
cat
good to go.
video for if we need that.
Okay. Meanwhile,
And I also have a segment called "Hey, look, guys, they're lizards," but we can save it for next week.
I think we'll save that for next week.
or can watch the squirrel video again.
Yeah, Dustin got a gig of that. That might wake him up too. But yeah, the reason I bring this up again is because a lot of people were talking about that we're moving towards, particularly on the right, a second American Revolution. And even you have people on that are in the center, such as Tim Pool. They're talking about this. Tim Pool right now is doing his
Is he on the
MAGA.
center at this point? He's
Oh.
pretty far on the right at this point.
I would say Tim Pool is pretty far center on. He's left on pretty much everything but guns and.
But the definition of I guess what I'm saying is the definition of right and left does change. Like
Yeah, but
because
Tim
they've
Pool's
supported
like,
different things.
I mean, Tim Pool's like for universal health care. He's like he's pro-choice. He's like, pro-gay marriage, pro-drug legalization,
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you say
pro-raising the
that
minimum wage, or
a lot of libertarians have that exact same stance, though, and libertarians are not near the left at all anymore.
Well, I would say that libertarians, a lot of times, there are left libertarians, but most libertarians are more left on social issues. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of
That was a big difference back in the day. Like when I was even first introduced to the idea of a libertarian with like Ron Paul and that stuff, like it was like, oh, you're Republicans that just like cherry pick some of the stupid stuff out. You know what I mean?
no,
Like,
it's
what
really
it
more.
seemed like was what
I
I'm
mean,
saying nowadays.
that's the way they're represented a lot of times as the good things from the left side and the right side put together. It's kind of where libertarians fall.
like you're starting from bad material.
But I mean, you take the left and the right, and they take the good things and they split them up. So, like, if you want to support, say, drug legalization, then you have to be against. Then you have to be against guns, or if you want to support, gun rights, then you have to be against drug legalization because there's only two ways to go. And if you want to be, if you're pro-capitalism and pro-business and low taxes, then if you go to the Republicans, then you are going against the social issues that you may support. So they divide you up and they kind of make you. I've seen people go from believing one thing, maybe just that they strongly support gun rights, and then they get in with Republicans who are the only ones that support gun rights, at least on the national stage, and then they are all of a sudden find themselves opposing gay marriage just because they've been watching a network where the hosts on there who are supportive of gay rights or supportive of gun rights or opposing of gay rights. So, but I think libertarianism is a whole lot more than that. Really, it boils down to localization, individuality, and the idea that the government does not actually have the authority to control many of these things that they try to control. And many of those things, including, right down to the police being, you have a state police that a lot of libertarians don't believe in that. Even though we're not supposed to have a state police in Tennessee, we have a highway patrol, which is effectively a state police.
State troopers everywhere that subsidize the lack of troopers, which is why around here we should be screaming fund the police, because the more police we have, the fewer state troopers we'd have.
Sean says, I'd say these days Tim is considered center right. Yeah, you're probably right. That's probably how he's considered. But my point is, he takes mostly left-wing positions, but he's even still considered center right because he believes in individuality and he believes in evaluating something based on the facts as he sees them, not necessarily falling into one camp or another. But I mean, the what do they call it? The Overton window has moved to the left in a lot of ways, but it's also moved to the right in a lot of ways, because we see the lefties will say that it's moved to the right because we've made gains on gun laws with constitutional carry states popping up all over the nation. We've had the recent ruling in the Supreme Court where the states cannot deny permits like they have been. And then you also see things happening like gay marriage becoming legal nationwide, and then you see you think they'll go for that? Drugs being legalization.
You think they'll leave that one alone?
I don't know. Somebody would have to sue for it.
Well, I didn't think, to be honest with you, that they'd ever try to turn the old Roe v. Wade over, but they did.
Yeah.
So now I have to think if they did do that, and if it's right or wrong or not, like, you would think maybe they could go after a couple other things too. So.
Yeah. Well, they were saying that they were mentioned in Clarence Thomas's opinion on the Roe versus Wade, that it could be looking at revisiting some 14th Amendment issues. So that could be gay marriage. Now, again, I've mentioned before, I think gay marriage should be legal, but at the same time, I don't necessarily like the way that they did it using the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment was initially supposed to be made to say that basically that if you were a slave, they could not deny you your rights in that state, whatever state you were in. And then it was used, because when they freed the slaves with the 13th Amendment, well, they sort of freed them. They said slavery shall not be allowed unless you're in prison, then you can still be enslaved, or as payment for,
Hence, privatized prison was the only way to own slaves.
Yeah. So there's still modern day slavery using the prison system, and it is allowed by the 13th Amendment. But the 14th Amendment said that these newly formed citizens who were formerly slaves, that whatever state that they were in, they would have all the rights and privileges associated with any other citizen of that state. But then it eventually became ruled that meant that each state, if you had a right or a privilege in one state, then you had it in all states, and they used that decision to make gay marriage the law of the land. And again, I think gay marriage should be legal, but at the same time, if say Vermont or New Hampshire wants to have it legal, and then Idaho or Montana doesn't want to have it legal, then that was the whole reason that we had the republic that we have, is so that the people who actually live in those areas can set those things that aren't in the Constitution, right? The Constitution said, the 9th and 10th Amendment were that if whatever things weren't mentioned in here were left up to the people of the states or the people, or to the individuals themselves. So that was the whole idea, was that the best system would win out, and if you didn't like the system in one state, then you could go to another. And that's kind of how a lot of people are saying that the Civil War 2.0 or the national divorce may happen, is because, as we mentioned in the episode we were talking about Roe versus Wade, there is such a different viewpoint on the whole issue that it's almost like you're never going to come together on those, because ultimately one side, the right, sees abortion as the protection of the rights of the life of a child who is grown in its mother, and ultimately the left sees it as we have to protect the mother's rights, and that person inside her, or that is ultimately not a person inside her, until it reaches a certain point, and her rights are more important than this clump of cells. So they view things totally differently. So it just comes to the point of are we so different that we can't get together for trade and a common defense, or do we want to try to, continue to work together in those matters, and then otherwise leave everything up to our states?
And this is why when we start labeling ourselves anarchists and what do you golf? Label yourself Catman.
Yes.
Politically labels himself a Catman. That's why I have to say I'm an apathist, because like I feel like when I start talking about stuff, people look at me like I'm like sprouting antlers or something. Like they give me this look. Like, so I know the things that are coming out of my mouth are so absurd that, like, so when I'm on here talking with you guys, a lot of times I'm literally, for anybody ever wondering, I'm literally just taking the other stance, because my stance would seem so goofy that people wouldn't really. It'd be the whole show trying to argue why I think that way, so I'd rather just not even go into it. I think most of the discussions we even start off with in politics don't end because we started in the wrong spot to begin with. I mean, for example, you've seen the my choice, woman, my choice, my choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're starting from the wrong spot. If you're going to go after the big A, you got to go drug laws first. If you can't even choose what you're putting in your body, it's not your body or your choice. So, like, it's not even a man's body and his choice. We can't even decide to put certain things in our body.
It's true.
So we sure as hell can't determine what's coming out of it,
Sean says, what's Tennessee's position on the marijuana? We are illegal in Tennessee right now, but it's essentially...
Well, it was going pretty pro, but, man, ever since the influx of people coming here, they've really been doubling down. Like, they went after trying to illegalize CBD about 2 months ago.
Yeah, that didn't go very far, though. I mean,
But I'm saying with the people, to answer his question, a short one, and then you can break it down into non-dummy words. The people here in Tennessee primarily support it, but the politicians are so anti-weed, it's comical.
Sean says, Tim on your show is like Ian on Timcast. Yeah, he kind of is our Ian, except he's a little crazier than, he's a little more entertaining than Ian. But yeah, I get what you're saying there, Sean. He kind of is, and he does like to have the contrary view sometimes, and it's good to have that, because otherwise, just me and Dustin are sitting here saying, "Yeah,
I will die in a van in the wilderness by myself with maybe a dog, and maybe somebody met like 2 days before just so they can bury me. I gave them like burial money or something."
Sort of like the old thing with sailors. They had the one gold earrings that they washed off the ship and died. They could have a burial.
I didn't know that about me.
Yeah, that's why sailors and stuff wore one gold earring, because it was enough for a Christian burial anywhere in the world at the time.
What
Okay.
about Somali pirates? Were they Christians?
It probably just became a status symbol by then.
That's true. Like a lot of those things that used to have like meanings get kind of altered.
I was watching Jim Brewer's comedy special the other day, and he just came out with.
He had an Owen Benjamin one get pulled. The internet's Letizia. Okay, so have you seen? Okay, so you watched Jim Brewer's comedy special, but he also has the Bruniverse. Do you watch that by any chance?
No,
Jim Brewer has kind of caught some of the runoff from a lot of these comedians that have kind of become too vanilla. A lot of comedy podcasts are just absolute garbage now because they can't talk comedy anymore. They become PSAs.
Legion of Skanks is like the only one left that I listen to.
Okay, well, Jim Brewer, the Bruniverse would be like Legion of Skanks for people that don't want to listen to Louis J. Gomez and all that. Because, it's pretty offensive, you know what I'm saying? It's like more shot jockey. And Bruniverse is more like, what's Jim Brewer? So if you can imagine Jim Brewer doing a podcast, I've seen a couple of them just because I like some of the guests I've seen. I've watched a couple of them. He had an episode with Owen Benjamin, and it got pulled within like 2 or 3 days of being up because he's one of the most... He's up there in the top of the people that YouTube really likes to put the band.
Oh, the comedian. On. He's the comedian that did like the N-word stuff.
No, he was the one that specifically went after the T part of the LGBT.
Wow.
I don't. Just look up Owen Benjamin. Okay. You're never going to find his stuff on YouTube.
I think I heard him on Sam Tripoli's podcast.
He talks a lot. He kind of was. He was he's a conspiracy theory person now, but he was a comedian. Was on JRE a couple times. He was briefly married to Christina Ricci, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. He was briefly a comedian. I'm just saying, like, he's not as controversial as he would make him out to be, except he went after the T's. Right. But in my opinion, I think he got himself canceled on purpose. Yeah, because he was leaning too hard.
He said it was the best thing that ever happened to him on.
Yeah, that's why he did it.
On the tinfoil hat, because he said basically that. It pulled him out of the market where people were just getting pissed at him all the time, and then a following of people actually wanted to see him started coming out for this stuff. And so everybody that was at his show was actually there because they liked what he had done with pissing off.
Badmouth his his actual fans.
Well,
The most aggressive fan base I've ever seen in internet history.
the reason I brought up Jim Brewer is he was talking about in his special about how you remember back in the day. He was talking about people being gay and like nobody really even thinking about it or talking about it a whole lot. He was talking about Elton John. You know, he's up on the piano playing with his feather boa and his
In a Donald Duck outfit.
and then you know, in the 80s he comes out with his right ear pierced. They're like, oh my God, Elton John's gay. He's got his right ear pierced. Because remember when we were kids, if you had your left ear pierced, that was the cool guy piercing. You know, if you had the left ear pierced, you were cool. But if you had the right ear pierced, that was how you showed you were gay back in, you know, the 70s and 80s. I don't know if anybody actually did
They were
that.
cattle.
But don't you remember that though? That was
No, I remember it. But I'm pretty sure I was in elementary school, though, when those rules were going around.
Yeah, we were.
Because that was pre-boys doing both. Like,
Yeah,
by
we
the
were
time I
young.
got to high school, it got up to double studs.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I had very briefly. And then I had little balls on my earlobes for, like, forever.
Yeah, I had those for a while too. The ones
Anyway, it's pretty lame. I did not look cool. So I took them out.
well, the
Buy you them stretching some bitches.
I never wanted to go gauge. For the same reason I don't have tats. I waited this long. What's the point?
And next week,
well, now you get to be one of the few people who don't have them now because
Yeah.
they're so common.
Yeah,
now.
that was. I mean, I didn't want to like be like elitist about it, but like I noticed that everybody was getting tattoos, and I'm a contrarian. I like to go against the grain, so I was like, nah, I should be a blank canvas, freckles only. But one of these days, what I think I want to do is like play connect the dot with all these freckles, and see what happens.
it'd be a blackout sleeve.
I'd look like
It'd be a blackout.
a black alien project. I was talking about just arms only.
See, when I was getting them back, 20 years ago, or actually, it's been longer than that. Over 2 decades ago, since I started getting tattoos, it was initially there weren't that many people that were getting them, and it was kind of rebellious to run out and get one. There
Well, that was
was
the whole point. It was still like
there was
rebellion about
one
it.
tattoo parlor in like Elizabethton, and there was like 2 in Johnson City. There wasn't that many people around, but now it's kind of like almost everybody that you meet that's over. I don't know, even young kids that are not even out of high school have tattoos now. So.
Yeah, and I'm not even knocking it either. I'm not, kind of way, it's
no.
whatever. But at some point, if I'm going to do tattoos, if I'm going to do them, I'm going to do something. I'm going to go full like Constantine or like Avatar and
Just
do
get
like
a
just do
fucking
something that looks like when I'm
xenomorph.
coming at you, I look like the protagonist in an anime. I'll go full hair.
There you go.
If I'm going to do it, let's go.
You're gonna get the kitten.
Oh yeah, I'll go full kitten. That's what I should do. Get the whiskers.
Yeah, shit. When you seen the
Dye
kitten.
myself purple pink. That's my fursona. Just so y'all know, I don't have a fursona. I'm totally kidding. But if I did, it would be the glitter kitten.
Sean says, my mother went nuts on me because Evel Knievel had the opposite ear pierced than I did. I told her I have no idea what Evel Knievel does in his private life. I know what he does in his public life. He jumps motorcycles and he can pierce whatever ear he wants.
Did you ever see an interview where he's talking about a guy walks up and he was like talking about no, I think it was a Norm Macdonald skit actually talking about how Evel Knievel, how every single interview he has to relive that horrible moment where the guy's like, so what were you thinking when the motorcycle landed? He was like, oh, and he has to hold his shit together and not say, well, I don't know. I was thinking, oh God, my femur, oh God, my pelvis. Am I gonna die? God save me.
Well, yeah, but I think the
That was a smart guy though, because he knew even if he wrecked, he was gonna be famous. So.
well, he was. I think he was an example of kind of that. You had that homogenous culture at the time, but he was kind of one of the first rebels because he basically started on like fairgrounds and and became famous because he was doing these big jumps, and he was a good example of that kind of American spirit that you saw from guys like. Going back further, like Houdini, who would go out there and just do stuff in groups of people, and so many people would watch it and be impressed by their abilities that people would start paying for it, and other, telling people. And next thing you know, you go to town and you put up a sign that Evel Knievel or Harry Houdini is into town, or now even the Harlem Globetrotters or something like that. Everybody comes around and starts watching, and
When promoters were necessary.
yeah, now it's kind of like. It's kind of force fed to you through television and the internet, and you've got a lot more choices. But at the same time, they're still the major cultural force that, you know, kind of drives along everything. And we see a lot of that with the, with the way that the country has turned against police officers over the last several years, and I think with good reason. But you see a lot of these things. I think it was Tim Pool that I saw talking about this on his show. You imagine, like 10 years ago, when Facebook was really getting big, and people started seeing things on there. I can remember I talked about it on the show several times, where people used to say, you know, keep your politics off my Facebook. I'm here to talk to my family and friends and find out about music that I like and things like this. And if you would post a video of, you know, the cops violating somebody's rights in some form or another, like a lot of us did, including myself, you had the things like the Free Thought Project and Cop Block and
Police the Police.
Yeah, a lot of these pages, they ended up getting banned, a lot of them. But you think about the way that drove the culture, because those things got a lot of clicks.
They're still getting clicks. There's channels on YouTube right now still doing that.
Yeah,
some of them are harassy as hell, and I disagree with what they're doing. They actually make the movement look bad with some of the dumb shit they do.
But they got big, right? And they got a lot of clicks, so they started promoting them in the algorithm. If you can imagine if you're like 8-10 years old and you're on the internet, you know, 2010. And you see nothing but Cop Block, Police the Police, and he's been watching this for 10, 12 years. And you kind of get this idea in your head, even though, you know, I think the police do have too much authority, too many laws to enforce, too much power over us as individual citizens. You see a constant barrage of these videos of these you know, nightmare cop encounters, who are really a small percentage of the counters. But you get this idea that all your cop encounters are going to be like that. And so it drives this sentiment, this anti-police sentiment. And really, the police are just the enforcers of the system that we live in. So we should really be focusing on the system that we live in. But we're focused on the basically, the police might as well be robots.
Do you know who Mark Passio is?
I've heard the name.
Okay. Do you know who Mark Passio is? Mm-hmm. Mark Passio is, if you could imagine, like, he looks like Goff, but like if Goff was like a little bit more, not necessarily working out, just presented himself like this, you know? And now imagine Goff, angry as shit, but screaming about like stuff that you talk about. Yep. That's essentially Mark Passio. I'm not saying the information's not good. I'm saying he reminds me of the shovel dude off that final season of Twin Peaks, where he's sitting there going, dig your way out of the shit, and he tries to sell those golden shovels to people. That's what Mark Passio kind of reminds me of. Sorry, Mark, I'm not shit talking. No way's ever gonna find this. But his methods are so screwy. But when you start talking about police, his whole big thing is that we need to start breaking things down into simpler points, which I actually agree with. Like, his whole thing was like, you can break the 10 Commandments down into one major one if you take the religious parts out, which is don't steal. Yeah. You know. But one of his things is police. You can have a police thing. He said the reason police systems go wrong is because of order followers. Mm-hmm. If all the people just collectively went, "No, this one's stupid right here. We're not going to do that," then it would flow. It'd be perfect. But people are so corruptible and, I don't know, brainwashable. I guess that's a good one. I think there's a lot of laziness that goes into it because we don't want to think. It's easier not to, so it makes us do unscrupulous things when we're younger, you know.
Ignorance to it. Be like, I don't know.
Well, that's another Mark Passio point. This is how my mind works. You get me in a tunnel, I can't come out. He likes to bring up the difference between ignorance and nescience, which is ignorance is the information is there, you've just chosen to ignore it. Mm-hmm. And nescience is knowledge that you didn't even know was presented to you. Which, by that same thing, we're all guilty of that. We ignore something every day. So
it's true.
And we need to. That's how we survive.
Yeah, you can't focus on every single thing or you'll drive yourself crazy and then you'll miss the actual threats to yourself. But as we see the states kind of dividing up and going one way or the other, I think it could be, I mean, a lot of people view it as a negative thing, and I think it could actually be a positive thing.
We're at a split point, like we were going to do something. Yeah. You know, so this is it's balance. That's the thing people need to understand. Balance is always going to return.
I'm afraid ultimately if we go as far as a national divorce at this point, I think that only ends in violence. So I think the idea that we're doing of going back to states setting their own ways, and maybe even states giving, helping to relocate people. So if it's something over gun rights, if you are wanting to go to a state with better gun rights, most people who are believer in that kind of things are more independent and more individualist mentalities. So they're probably going to be able to find the wherewithal to move to a state that supports them if that's important enough to them. And then you have people who maybe are less individual, more of a collectivist type people who believe in collective action through human beings. They will be seeking out states where that's possible, and they could even use their collectivist attitude to California. They could use their tax money to import people who believe in the things that they believe in over there.
Do you think the problem lies in, because I know we've obviously talked about the relocations that are going on the Iron Mountain Hour a bunch of times about people coming here and relocating from different states and stuff. Do you think the bigger problem is going to come into play with the fact that it's just not affordable for everyone to move? That's pretty expensive.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think that state relocation funds will be a thing. You're seeing corporate.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, you're already seeing.
Well, I know you got the corporate.
Google's going to relocate people to get abortions. They're going to move you to pay for your state.
Okay, I'm saying relocate you all together, but that's for a Google job. That's not somebody who's working for bottom dollar wages. I'm talking about there's a lot of people who work in normal jobs that are going to feel very slighted because they're going to be forced to stay in a state that is doing something completely opposite to what they believe. And I'm not talking about any particular law. There's a bunch of issues where you could pick from.
And that's what I'm saying. This opens the door for places like, say, for example, California. If you don't believe in, that's why that other Supreme Court decision kind of baffles me, because they say California, each state has the right to set their own abortion laws. Well, why does not each state have the right to set their own gun laws? If California wants to not have guns, why can't they do that? That initially the Second Amendment was to restrict the federal government, right? And so it was an application of the 14th Amendment that said that it couldn't just restrict the federal government. It had to restrict the state governments too. So why does that only count for things like gay marriage? Why doesn't it count for gun laws? And then all of a sudden they said, well, it doesn't count for abortion, so why does it still count for gun laws? I just don't understand it.
Well, I'm not a Supreme Court justice, and I wish I was, because I would have gotten all that money that they got paid.
I'm not either, but
Good theory, though, isn't it?
I've read some of the opinions, and I'm like, these kind of seem to be saying the opposite thing.
Well, that's what they call color of the law. That's the reason legalese and all that stuff's so confusing, because it can mean different things depending on who's reading it. That's the reason a judge. So I don't really like it. I think we've overcomplicated things to the point that it's ridiculous. We're gonna, like I said, Mark Passy is a screamer, and I don't really agree with him on everything, but he does have a good point that we've overcomplicated things. 10 rules seems pretty abbreviated, right?
Yeah.
But now we our law books are the tax code, allegedly. I've never even tried to look at it, as allegedly is so complex that it would take an army to dig completely through each states. And so
even just how they say gun laws, and they're over 20,000 in this country.
Yeah, if you count all the state and local gun laws, and then there's over 300 federal gun laws, and I don't know how many of those will still be in effect, but it seems like if the idea is that the right to the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed,
it's a lot of infringement there.
Yeah, so if
it's already been trampled.
if owning a machine gun, say for example, you have to have you have to pay the government for the tax stamp, you have to pay it for a license, or whatever it is. That's something that makes it more difficult for you to own that weapon. That is by definition an infringement, even if it's not.
It's an infringement on poor people, especially because if you got money, nothing's illegal in this country.
But it's still an infringement, even if you're rich. The fact that you have to fill out a piece of paper is an infringement by something that stops you from doing that without first completing another task. That's by definition an infringement. So. Now, again, that was originally only intended to apply to the federal government, but at the same time, there you got 300 federal gun laws. like Joe Biden likes to say a lot of times, he says, "Oh, you couldn't own a cannon." Well, yes, the fuck you could own a cannon. And they
People hear that in cannons to this day. It's people's yards everywhere you look going up and down the road.
and a lot of people will say, "Well, the Second Amendment was written in 1787. There were only muskets in 1787." Like, well, no, there was actually the Kentucky long rifle, but the musket that the Brits used, we actually had better guns than the Brits. That's part of the reason we won the American Revolution, is because they had the Pennsylvania or Kentucky
They
long
had
rifle.
multi-barrel. You had things that could repeat. You had repeating rifles and shit back then. It's like they had a lot more than what, just your standard old,
Yeah,
what everyone thinks.
we had the Puckle Gun, which was generally a ship-mounted gun that fired large projectiles by cranking, and it was a repeating. Technically, I guess it was fully automatic, right? Or
Yeah. And I mean, hell,
Can you
it's
imagine what
like-
would happen if the kid took that to school, Cliff?
And I mean,
on a scooter.
going back at the same time, whenever we were mapping out the country, Lewis and Clark, they had pneumatic rifles. Even
Yeah, the air rifle.
they had They had basically like breech loading, like repeating air rifles.
Yeah.
In the 1700s,
I watched, dude. I forget what
and
it
those
was.
things were pretty badass.
Well, I watched a demolition ranch the other day. They were shooting these 72 caliber air rifles that were, fuck, dude. They were like, it was shooting like a 600 or 700 grain 72 caliber slugs. They were shooting ballistic dummies, ballistic heads and ballistic torsos, and these things were destroying them. And they're not even considered firearms. But they're pretty incredible. And like you said, Lewis and Clark had those, and they saved their lives, didn't they? Didn't they get jumped by some Indians, and they shot one of the Indians with this thing, and the Indians were like, "Holy shit!" And they ended up trading one of the air rifles to them for passage in that area that they were in. I don't remember the exact story, but yeah, that's true. But you had the point being, we had just as good as better guns than the government at the time.
And also, if you want to say that, well, then First Amendment doesn't apply to any electronics.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it's like they had an easier time, thinking of like the weaponry we have rather than, shit like this.
Yeah.
This is more foreign to them than.
I'd say you're right about that. Yeah. I mean, because ultimately today we mostly still have. I mean, we have ballistic projectiles. We've just found a way to make them more accurate, more efficient, more effective. But at the same time, it's just the evolution that they.
Hell, we've not even perfect caseless ammunition yet. So I mean, we don't even have like there's
I told you what we need
energy.
to go back to. I've discussed this on the show. We need to go back to blunderbusses. Just something you just look kind of like that thing on the looper.
That's what the Brits had. That's why we were able to beat them with the
Better blunderbuss.
with the Kentucky long
I'm saying
rifle.
a better blunderbuss is what I'm saying.
Well,
Kind of like a communism versus capitalism.
what
argument.
was,
we'll do it better.
build a better blunderbuss.
I forget
I know it's
the
failed every time, but I can make it work.
I forget the type of long gun it was, but it was actually like a rifle that the bullet and barrel. It was actually quote unquote kind of rifled. It was a hex-shaped bullet that went into the hex-shaped rifle.
Oh, yeah.
And they could actually, with iron sights, they could shoot 1,200 yards back then.
No, go for it. It's yours.
They would actually do like shooting competitions to see who could hit these targets at like 1,300 yards
That's
with a muzzle loader.
Like you don't need it to spin.
No, it spins. It's like,
Okay.
but it's like the bullet and the barrel are lined up so perfectly because you have to.
So it goes.
Rifle, they're rifled,
okay.
but it's like specifically to that. And they had a way where you laid on your back and shot, and you propped it up on your feet, and they were shooting 1,200 plus yards back in the
insane.
1700s with muzzle loaders.
I'm going to say something that may seem naive, and
And-
I just believe what I believe here.
Okay.
Finish that thought. You said and anyway.
Well, I was like, well, that's ridiculous because most people considered you're like, hey, you haven't hit that until the 20th century.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had rifles that could do that back then.
What year?
Back in the 1800s.
1800s. How are guns not obsolete?
Well, I mean,
It's having
because
a-
they're effective.
But I mean, yeah, but like, okay.
It's because the government probably has repressed our technology to have damn laser rifles.
I'm just saying, like, because one of the big arguments that I actually use against people that get really, really uppity when I get annoyed about guns is like, like, yeah, I think everybody should be able to have a gun, but it's like, you're not going to take on the Fed from your trailer is what I'm saying. Like those guys, you know what I'm saying? I got a gun hidden behind the couch just in case the Fed comes for you.
Tell
The
that to
Ruby
the-
Ridge
tell that to
situation.
the Mujahideen.
Well, I'm just telling you that if you're in a trailer park and you think you're going to have your own Ruby Ridge situation, it's going to end exactly the same. Because even if we all teamed up together, what I'm convinced is the laser army is going to raise up on their helipads and just like they've already got like remote controls where they just go, oh, that's the golf button, huh? Boop, and golf's head goes. Boop. Because they've got like I don't know, like they've already got like that iPad that's on the Justice League or whatever. They can just make people's heads explode at will.
I mean, I think there's probably some sort of targeted stuff that is being unleashed, and I think maybe a lot of stuff we've seen over the last 2 years
Sonic weapon.
could be
Well,
used.
their Silent Sound is a special program with using sonic weaponry.
Heck, in the first Gulf War, they had. Okay, you have to remember in the Gulf War, the Iraqi soldiers that we were fighting, the Iraqi Revolutionary Guard, they had just been fighting Iran for, I don't know, 6-8 years in a war in the 1980s. And ultimately, these were battle-hardened soldiers who, under a couple of weeks of the Americans using psychological warfare on them, actually turned their weapons over and surrendered. Like 400,000 surrendered like all at once because they were playing heavy metal music into their heads, and they were what all were they doing? Making these crazy weird sounds that sounded like demons, and they were thinking they were possessed. And
So normal Wednesday for me.
yeah. Metal and demons, but yeah, they turned over their weapons and surrendered because of the onslaught of the psychological weapon. Of course, there was like the Bill Hicks bit too, where the guys were just standing up with this. Let's see what this button does, and annihilates the target in front of you. And there was some of that too, but something pretty crazy had to be going on for these guys to just give up and surrender the way that they did, considering what they had been through and that they were experienced and good soldiers. But
Do you think they can look? Which way?
over there,
We know they can look through. Like they. We're going to use they. I'm going dark here, people.
do it.
Just go anti-gov. All right, which one are we at? I'm going full Dale Gribble. Where am I at?
You're over there.
Yes. They can see through these, right?
Yep.
They can see through the phones. I'm talking about the government, not the people's.
Yes.
They can see through the phones. There is I'm sure you've seen the parody accounts online called Birds Aren't Real.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that.
Birds Aren't Real was a parody conspiracy group. I think it started from a podcast called Painkiller Already, which is a bunch of gamers
Yeah.
tied to Wings of Redemption, which is a lolcow we talked about once upon a time. But it's a pretty funny thing. But I mean, I got to think about that. Like, I mean, could you do that?
Replace the birds with robots? Like
No, not necessarily replace the birds with robots, because that sounds so funny that they're recharging the power.
Well,
lines
isn't
and all
that what they said though? That the birds are actually not. What is it? That they are just listening and spy devices that.
Yeah, that they
biological?
land on the power lines to charge.
Okay.
And, it gets real goofy real quick, but it's funny, and it just makes you wonder, like, could you just do that? Like, tap into all the life forms around you? Because, okay, Batman Dark Knight Trilogy, one with the Joker, where he turns all these effectively into, like, a giant sonar device, I'm talking ridiculous. I'm just saying, like, it's
No, I mean that's
possible that you could
absolutely something
look,
that could be done.
like, it's essentially, like, look through, turn all the animals into an Agent Smith, essentially, like, where every normal, jailbroke person in the Matrix can be turned into something. I don't know.
No, I see what you're saying.
I'm trying to think of what kind of weird out there technology the government could have that we don't know about because,
Well, I would think they almost certainly they do have the technology that you're talking about
to look through animals' eyes, because that's what I'm talking about. To look like there's a deer in my backyard and that deer's sitting there going, "Yeah, I see you pissing." My agent what works for the TBI is sitting there going, "Tim took a piss at this amount of time."
So every alphabet boy has a druid on call.
Yeah, like my TBI guy's like, "Tim needs to drink more water. His pee stinks."
monitoring his toilet. No, I'm not saying that they don't have. I think that they probably do have on the small scale. There's probably are devices that could tap into I mean, you've got Neuralink. Elon Musk is a private citizen. He's developing Neuralink and you've got drones that you can fly with your brain. You've got, for people who don't know that,
Like
look
that
it
would
up.
be really dangerous.
There are drones that you can pilot with your brain, using your brainwaves.
I used to make a meme of those drones and then cut to that scene from the Tommy Knockers. Have you seen it?
I've seen the Tommy Knockers a long time ago.
When that guy's taking that spaceship up in the air right before he blows it up with his mind, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And his nose is just pouring blood and he's going, ah! Have a drone flying into a tree or something.
Just have it flying really shittily too. We're just kinda
Does that mean he's got a boner?
like, yes.
He's got the bloody nose?
Probably, yeah. Oh, yeah, Japanese, yeah. Mhm. That's my theory. Yeah, the blood has nowhere to go. That's that Japanese, which means
I think they're just trying to
Israel
show that,
Adesanya has seen a whole lot of bleeding noses.
I think they're just trying to show that he's having a rush of blood. I think that's the idea.
His pecker has no room left in it, and so the blood has to go. That's what it has to be. I swear to God, that's what it has to be. That he's so turned on
Well, they're
by the
trying.
waifu that the blood has to go somewhere. And
They're
it's
trying to
his
show
nose.
you that he's pitching a tent with actually showing
Israel
him
Adesanya has
physically pitching a
nosebleeds
tent.
on the daily. Yeah. Did we even talk about that on the show?
I don't-
Israel Adesanya is a weeb. He's a heavyweight champion. He would kill all three of us with one hand, and there's nothing we could do about it. But he's a weeb, and he jerks off to hentai, and it's funny. So there you go.
No, you're talking about
Israel Adesanya has nosebleeds. That's
Like
what
he only needs the one hand because the other hand's wanking.
it's a good thing.
like like I'm the champ.
How do you choose whether to
He
whack?
holds his belt in one
or
hand.
fight?
I'm the champ.
I mean, you got to be
Use the
ambidextrous.
tentacles to hold it.
Do you know the story?
Were
I don't even
you
know
were
if I
telling
can
us
go
earlier
there. I don't know if I
about the guy seeing him watching hentai and said he may whoop my ass, but I'm not gonna get.
Oh no, I was going to say,
That's
do you
what
know
you were talking about earlier.
No,
Tonight, right?
Israel Adesanya. Do you know the story of why tentacle porn is so popular in Japan?
Oh, I did not know tentacle porn was popular.
You don't know? Okay, well, Cliff didn't know that tentacle porn is very popular in Japan.
I'm
It
but
is.
a naive man.
It is. It's very popular.
You're innocent.
You know why?
You're-
So it makes perfect sense as a psychology dropout, but it's also absurd at the same time. Because for a very long time in Japan, penises weren't allowed to be shown in,
Oh yeah.
in the
or
hentai
any
stuff.
most
Now they can't even show
private
pubes.
parts.
Yeah, and so they were like, well, I guess the most logical thing to do is have a giant swarm of tentacles having sex with her. That makes sense.
You're like,
The country that gave you Godzilla, of course, you know.
I mean, see, that's a good example of how the government can't legislate things. They can't legislate behavior because
It makes you go weird.
Yes, just like because when you try to control things, even though like again, like with hard drugs or with abortion, I don't think it's good for people to have any of those things. But when you make them illegal, you just have more of them. When you make prohibition of alcohol the law of the land, you just have more alcohol, and then you have to arrest people for fucking drinking. And then when you make penis showing illegal in porn in Japan, you get a bunch of tentacle porn.
You get
And that's where
everybody
we end up,
addicted to
people.
tentacles.
You get people addicted to tentacle porn. That's where we end up with the government trying
I
to
give you a
roll it
real
out.
one.
Guarantee you, otherwise there would not be so many people into this. I mean, there's a freaking weirdo every now and then out there that's going to be
Prohibition perverts everything.
Yeah.
I give you a great real word point.
how many tickles do octopus like?
Tickles?
Yes.
69. I don't know.
Go for it.
10 tickles.
Oh,
Oh, jeez. That's interesting.
please, no more. No more.
To give you a real,
Spare us.
this is a concrete one that I can give you for a fact that just shows you prohibition doesn't work, which would be Afghanistan. That there's the sociologists that look on it from outside estimate that like in the high 80%, if not 90% of the male population is gay male is or gay and they're eubophiles, which means they're in the young men. Mm-hmm. And the psychology behind that is women are invisible in their
Right.
in their society. So if you never see a woman your entire life, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to be attracted to this thing that you just met at 25 or whatever, like their entire coming of age and sexuality was spent around boys that looked like the, you know what I'm saying? That's, I know that's weird psychology, but I mean, like a lot of psychology is just rooted
It
in the
was so
honesty
frowned
of
upon
humanity.
that it was, and it's not.
Women
frowned
have to wear the
upon, but-
burqas. They
yeah.
can't even. They literally don't see a woman unless like you're allowed to see. Like you can go to like bars and like places like that. They'll show like women danced on TV, but then even like the nudity is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be on screen. Alcohol is illegal in
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan, so they have to traffic alcohol. So it really just makes the I think that should just be a point right
And
there.
you also, it's considered, whatever it is, like we're I don't know, anti-woke or whatever to say it, but they have a lot of sex with animals over there too. And it's probably a product of the same thing.
I'll be honest with you guys. I've also looked up the world of zoophiles. That is not. It's not for the Iron Mountain Hour. I saw the look on Cliff and Golf's face when I showed y'all Pamper Chew and him hoarding diapers from the dumpster.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not going to bring you guys into the world of zoophiles.
No, please do not.
But
Say that type of party. Tim.
America does not need to be bragging about having the fewest amount of zoophiles.
Oh, I don't think.
If they're banging goats in Afghanistan, we got people online bragging about it in like Florida and Oklahoma and places like that. So we've got no room to talk as Americans about having sex with farm animals.
No, I don't think. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it is far more culturally accepted in Afghanistan than it is.
Yes,
in the
but
United
I
States.
want to preface you're also talking about desert people versus people that have Google I'm like, that's a real big dichotomy.
Yeah,
I really am very forgiving.
Yeah, they are more primitive people.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like people over here are going to new levels with it, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, let's.
I'll tell you all about it off camera, so I can ruin your lives
don't tell me.
when the cameras are off.
I don't want to know about
Is that
it.
like another story like the Mr. Hands got you from like the mid-2000s? No.
And you can tell me about that when the cameras go off. I don't recall this one.
No, I don't.
I will tell you.
This is
I will tell
rooted in
you.
reality, though.
I will tell you a joke that I read on Reddit this weekend, and it was there was a Jack Russell and a Great Dane in the vet's office, and the Jack Russell was the Great Dane. What are you doing here? Or the Great Dane says, Jack Russell, what are you doing here? And the Jack Russell says, well, I was, in the kitchen, and I was watching the cat go get a drink of water, and it was bent over, and it just looked so good that I had to go jump on it, and now I'm getting castrated. I'm getting neutered. And he says, so what are you in here for, Great Dane? The Great Dane said, well, now I was noticing my mistress. She was going to the door, and she was wearing a towel, and she bent over, and she just looked so good. And the Jack Russell said, so now you're here getting neutered? He says, no, I'm getting my nails clipped. Because apparently there is a...
You said you didn't want to talk about it.
No, I didn't. I had to bring it up because apparently there is a growing number of women out there who are posting online that they are fucking their dogs.
You said you didn't want to talk about it. Guys, I'm going to bring something up to you, okay? Don't judge me for this.
If you fucked your dog, Tim, I'm going to judge you for it.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that, like, I won't go there. I'm just saying, I've looked into a lot of abnormal psych, and you said you didn't want to talk about it, and you just brought up that there is an alarming amount of women who have giant dogs, and they're also, you know what it has to do with? There ain't no guys out there. I'm sorry. I'm like, every time I play, and I know maybe it just sounds like a millennial rant against the Gen Z, but like, what do you expect hypersexualized creatures to do when there's nothing there to... I know it's a perverted way of looking at it, but like, there's no guys at the bars, man. There's just empty.
And another point that people have made is a lot of the successful men who are maybe in their 30s, 40s, they spent, their 20s buckling down and landed a successful job. They have a nice house, nice car, lots of extra money. They are supposedly scooping up a lot of the younger women because they have immediate access to people via the internet and dating apps.
I can show you the problem with that, though.
And well, let me continue for just a second, and then I'll let you hit me with it. The younger women are not going for the younger women. They're going for the younger men. They're going for established men. And then the men who are established and are able to, they're wanting to get younger, fertile women. It's an evolutionary thing.
Who don't want to have kids is the problem.
Yes, and the women who do want kids who are older are not able to have access to the older men who are established with money and homes.
But it's not as clean cut as that, and I know it sounds awful.
No, it's not.
But like, women my age have been programmed, and this is where I can be nice about it. And the reason I feel like I can talk about this without being an asshole is because I'm not judging anybody for the way they are. Like, you can't blame a plant for growing in such a way when that's the soil that it was grown in. You have a whole generation of women who were told since they were old enough to speak, that they had to be independent, they didn't need no man, that they shouldn't conform to any of the norms, and that they should do everything themselves, and they've been pedestalized to the point that they can't live up to superwoman status. And they also want these kids now with these men who want a traditional woman still, and it's like, it's so that it doesn't match. And so the man, he thinks he's going to pull a trump card out and be like, I got an idea, I'll just go for this 24-year-old down here, not realizing that they're wild as fuck, man. They're batshit crazy, and they are never going to want kids. They hate kids worse than even the 40-year-old women right now. It's a really complicated dating scene right now. I mean, balance is going to restore. I mean, Dumbass right here is going to tell you balance will be fine, but...
Yeah, no, I think you're right, but it is a complicated situation because you have different age groups, different demographic groups mingling with one another and wanting different things, and ultimately, it's more of a free market of dating, as it were. You because when we grew up, you were tied to the people that you met, like who you meet in the places that you go, or who you went to school with. That was your dating pool.
People you met in the dream ether.
Yeah, but now the dating pool is the dating pool is wide open now. I mean, people date from different cities. Do
they though?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like. Well, I mean, they do, but you're like, say, I wouldn't necessarily meet somebody even from, you look at Tri-Cities, from Kingsport. Unless we went to a social function together. But now you've got the internet where you can meet someone from Kingsport, and then you can choose to go to a social function together because you met on the internet to begin with. So,
or you can make out virtually with that weird head.
Yeah.
With a girl in South Korea who ends up being a dude in South Florida.
Who ends up being a dog in West Virginia.
And you can do that with your Teddy's Artisanal Toys.
Is she getting into fake VR move?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yes.
See,
no, she's got
Making moves.
See, Cliff and Tammy are both movers and shakers. I'm a hippie musician that likes to play with earthworms. They actually get things going, and apparently they've been talking about some VR stuff that I didn't know about. So
right.
I'm pretty excited to see what world of debauchery and pornography Tammy and Cliff can come up with together. Cliff was talking before the show about making one. He said he was really inspired when he walked into Intimate Treasures. Once upon a time, there was these two up on the wall. They were called the Masthead, right? They had this one on the light. It was called Black Thunder. Picture it in your head, Mm-hmm. And there was another one right next to it, equal. It was called White Lightning, right? So Cliff was looking at it and he was like, holy shit, we need to make one that's camo. So we got one coming out. It's going to be in real tree and mossy oak.
It's called the Dick Dynasty.
That's a good one. That's the company. Cliff's going into the porn business himself.
No. This is
coming after your biz,
This
Tammy.
is the Tammy's Artisanal Toys. This is a collaboration between the Iron Mountain Hour and Tammy's Artisanal Toys. I would never cut into her market like that. I have more respect and more business sense.
You look like you'd be more like that. What is that? Checkerboard sort of 8-bit looking camouflage.
The digital camera.
Is that what it is? Digital? Yeah.
Where's that ACU? What was ACU?
What's the science behind that? Why is it like that?
Let's just go full on Tiger Strap.
Like from Call of Duty?
Yeah, you go Tiger.
Okay, well, you can do Tiger.
That's a cat named Tiger.
Oh my God. No, I'll save that thought for a different time because I loved that thought. I will let it nurture in the topsoil of my brain, and I'll come back with something awful to say because that one was it involved cats.
So I met somebody in the grocery store and told him about the show tonight. That oddly enough, I worked in the grocery store with him over 2 decades ago, and every time I run into him, it's in the grocery store. Stacy, if you're out there, hello. Hope you got the chance to join us tonight. See, jump in the chat sometime. If you're out there with us, jump in the chat about any of this nonsense we're getting into. If we haven't run you off with all our depravity, we appreciate you staying with us. But ultimately, we've been on here close to 2 hours. So, I mean, I guess I'll sum it up by saying I think we're basically at a precipice right now in the United States with the way things could go. And, they could go peaceful or they could go violent, and they could go...
Call me Jojo Rabbit.
Well, we're gonna be hanging out with one side over the fence or over the barbed wire. Or?
Oh no, call it Jojo Rabbit's the kid in the. I don't remember who made the movie, but the movie's effectively about a boy who's going through like a coming of age love story while World War II is literally happening in his backyard.
Yeah, and he's on the other side from a Jewish.
Well, he's
in love with,
yeah. I'm not saying I'm gonna go start trying to get people out of the border or something like that, and they run away with me and find me a nice, Mexican waifu or whatever. No, I don't know. Might make me some good tacos. Not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying, like, as the boogaloo goes down or whatever, if it goes down, I don't really. I'm gonna play music and talk to you guys on the Iron Mountain Hour. I guess if you guys grab your gun and start shooting or whatever, I guess I'll be like the guy that's on the front of the semi truck on Pure
You'll be writing a song about.
That'll be you. Can you imagine golf up in that gimp suit with that big mask on, playing that bass?
I watched what's the Beyond Thunderdome the other day. I haven't seen it in years.
We don't need no hero. She's not even a U.S. citizen anymore. Yep.
Tina?
Yep, she married some king or something and went to a different country and got out.
Oh shit.
Yep, she professes that she hates the U.S. and all this stuff these days.
Do you think Billy Joe Armstrong will really drop his U.S. citizenship like he threatened to?
I believe Tina Turner. She survived Hurricane Ike Turner. I don't believe Billy. I think Billy was a sellout punk poser from the beginning. And I don't think he's scrupulous. He wouldn't have come out as bisexual. Look, I'm sorry if you've never banged a dude. I'm just playing with y'all. It's just
Well, if you've never banged a dude,
does it not just seem like a blatant like clout grab to be like, well, I've been with my wife since I was 19. We got 19 kids and counting. But you know what? I sure do like a cock from time to time. It's very obvious I'm gay, and it's like, no,
I paint my fingernails black.
I don't even know if I believe it. You know what I'm saying?
I wrote an album called Dookie.
Yeah. That was a good album.
He got inspired one night by looking down at the after effect.
He wasn't all by himself after all.
Yeah, I don't think he will. I think a lot of people are. When it comes down to it, you really don't want to go. I mean, where are you going to go? I don't know. From Green Day, so it is a big difference. He can really go somewhere, but he's not going anywhere.
There's all those celebrities that said they were moving to Canada when Trump got elected. I wonder how many actually went.
None of them.
Yeah.
What like it was like Bieber and all them. One. He's already Canadian, so that didn't count.
Then you had Neil Young threatening to. I thought this was the craziest thing. I was actually reading this article in Flip City magazine that reminded me of this with the Media Monarchy guy, and I'd forgotten all about this, but Neil Young was the anti-GMO, pro health freedom kind of guy, and then when I did, which I didn't even think about this, but remember when Joe Rogan was having on guests who were he had what's his name? The inventor of the RNA technology. Shit, I can't think of his name.
Shit. Yeah.
Robert.
His name's Shit, really? Both
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Shit.
But he had on Dr. Peter McCullough. He had on I can't think of his name now. But the guy who invented mRNA technology, Dr. Robert
Stanmanson.
But anyway, that was the whole reason that Neil Young was saying that he wanted his music pulled from Spotify, is because these guys were. Neil Young was the original anti-corporate, big business, anti-pharma, big health, GMO, Monsanto, playing Farm Aid. He was against all that shit. And then all of a sudden you have him being like Joe Rogan is having doctors on his podcast that tell people that maybe they shouldn't take this vaccine. And so I'm going to demand that Spotify stop streaming my music, which I don't own the rights to anyway. And make this big deal out of this thing, and which Neil Young's a Canadian, but
another Canuck. Holy shit! We got. Did you ever pay? I know that I guess maybe. There's a lot of Canadians.
But just a lot of grandstanding for all these people who were supposedly anti-establishment to suddenly be more establishment. And if you get right down to it, Billy Joe, he's saying he's going to leave the United States because they overturned Roe versus Wade. But Roe versus Wade was the Supreme Court saying the federal government does not have the authority to decide if you get to have abortions or not. That's ultimately what they were saying. So
if he wasn't a punk poser, I wouldn't.
So would you not think that somebody like that would say, hey, that's a good thing that the Supreme Court decides that the federal government does not have the authority?
I think he shouldn't be making decisions. No, I actually disagree with that because I think he should take it further. At one point in time, he was supposed to represent punk rock, which is anti-authoritarian. He's not supposed to be commenting on. He's supposed to be going.
He's supposed to say, "Fuck it, we're going to do whatever we
That's
want
what I'm saying.
anyway."
Like, why are you asking? You're supposed to be a punk rocker. Why are you asking for permission? That's so stupid.
Yep.
So he's got such golden handcuffs. It's ridiculous anyway. So.
Real punks use coat hangers in their rifles and in their women.
I don't know. I think that's really one of the only ones that's particularly gotten under my skin over the last 10 years is watching the punk movement go from being because anti-authoritarian. Even when I was, I got that I was a little bit of a caricature or a little bit of an oxymoron when I was a Christian punk. You know.
Well, look at Jill Biafra. Like, I mean, Mr. Anti-Authoritarian, Dead Kennedys.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pushing the vaccine. You had
That's what I'm saying. Like Johnny Rotten, like everybody was shocked when he put a MAGA shirt. It's like
Johnny Rotten's a Republican.
That's
now.
what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like the most anti, but not even really like because that's what people are saying. Is like the most punk thing you could do right now would be put on a Trump shirt. It's like yes, but only to piss people off. Because if you're a punk rocker, you're not supposed to be supporting Trump either. You're supposed to stand away from the authority. You're not supposed to be. That's what's so stupid about it. Like, you got all these punkers out there, rock the vote. And it's like, what the fuck are you voting for? You're not supposed to be voting. You're a punk rocker.
You're supposed to be burning dumpsters. I do what I want. The Iron Mountain Hour does not advocate, or well...
Unless it's your own dumpster and you want to set it on fire. That's cool.
We're not promoting violence, we'll say that.
It's not also an analogy for most of our lives, too, being a dumpster fire.
I'm having a great time. I was late to the party, but I'm having a good time now.
But it's always good to show up fashionably late. Hey, listen, if you're having a good time here with us at the Iron Mountain Hour, we appreciate you sticking with us. We've been going almost 2 hours, so we're going to go ahead and get it done. But if you have enjoyed yourself, hit that like button, share it to somebody else.
Make it do that cool little animation.
Yeah, it does something cool now. And if you hit the little bell down at the bottom, will give you notification whenever we go live. So, you know, you can join us and comment on the show like Sean has done live.
That needs to be customizable thumbs up buttons for each channel. Like
they have that on
Twitch. Like for each thing.
No, they have that on Twitch, dude. We need to get our Twitch set up. But again, we're looking at we're kind of up against a wall where I'm not really wanting to spend any more money on the podcast at the time because this is something we just do for fun, so we're not bringing any revenue on it, and I'm at a limit to how much I want to spend out of pocket to do something.
Well, next year when we do the calendars,
hobby. So yeah, we'll do some.
We're gonna do nude calendars.
Nude calendars.
It's just gonna be like I guess us 4 times in a row. But
it's just gonna be pictures of our taints. You're gonna have to draw.
I don't think anyone wants to see just a wrinkly skin. And then the plot twist, it was actually just old potatoes that we took pictures of.
So I hope you're looking forward to that.
It's like, actually, that was just the inside of a shaved raccoon skin cat. It's like, God, Cliff's skin's so wide.
Wilbur,
You've got no hair down there at all.
Wilbur, you think you can get that printed for us? Oh, but we thank you for joining us. We have a good time with it. We hope you do too. You know, it's not even supposed to be anything super serious. I mean, we talk about interesting things that whatever Tim and Dustin and I think are worth discussing at the time. Maybe you don't agree, maybe you do. If you do, and you know somebody else who might think it's interesting too, send it over to them.
We should go out on the squirrel. You should play the squirrel and have the men behind the curtain play over it.
Oh man, I don't know if I can do that, but I will try. Hey, listen, we appreciate you joining us. Come back with us Wednesday night for our news and current events roundup, and then next week on Sunday, I think for episode 43, we'll do the Federal Reserve, which I was planning to do tonight, but being Independence Day, I thought I'd get into a little bit of an Independence Day story for it, and then we just shoot the general shit about the upcoming Civil War or national divorce or whatever the hell it's going to be. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you Wednesday, and let's get back to
Let's
the
get
squirrel.
squirrely with it.
Yeah, that's right. Let me see if I can find that again real quick. I closed it out, but I bet I can find it here.
It's in your email.
Yeah, with Narcin Nancy. Here's the squirrel.
The squirrel was the first one. I know. I have the humor level of a 6-year-old. I don't care. It's funny. Slapstick stuff's funny to me.
Well, I got to tell you, I was. This reminds me of. I took a friend of mine out. He had a hard time getting out of the house, and some friends and I went and we took him out for a night getting drunk at Newman's and the Mid-City Grill. And as we were hanging out in the parking lot, this guy, he starts hollering to the women that go by, "Show me that squirrel, girl! Show me that squirrel!" There's the squirrel. Hey, good night, folks. We appreciate you sticking with us this long. Again, we'll be back Wednesday and Sunday at 9 or 10 p.m. 9 Standard, or 10 Eastern, 9 Central. That's it. Or 8 Pacific for Sean out there on the West Coast. So we'll see you next time.
Wouldn't it be 7?
I don't know, Mountain Time, Pacific Time. I get mixed up by all that shit.
I guess
3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10, 9, 8. 8 Pacific. 7 Pacific? I don't know.
7.
We'll fucking see you then. Later.
Whenever it be.